My principal said it straight to my best friend's face. She claimed we were just imagining things, making problems where there weren't any. That was after my friend stood up for me and reported a teacher who had seriously messed me up. We tried to show him the proof, real evidence, but instead of listening, he hit us with a warning: false accusations come with consequences. We got the message and left. That was a whole year ago. Then this morning, his retirement was plastered on the front page of the local paper. I remember I was in 10th grade when Elena came back. She had missed the first 4 months of school, and once she stepped into the classroom, the air turned thick. Everyone went silent. Then someone broke the silence with the worst line I'd ever heard. "There's the girl who got railed and is now a mom at 16. The whole class exploded in laughter. It was brutal. That day, I saw her eating alone in the cafeteria, ducking while people threw crumpled papers at her like she was trash. I was about to walk over and sit next to her when my friend caught me by the shoulder and handed me a crumpled piece of paper. "Don't feel bad," she said. "She deserves this. She baby-trapped her boyfriend." She explained how Elena's boyfriend was supposed to go D1 for football, but now he was stuck changing diapers instead. Over the next few weeks, I kept an eye on Elena. What I saw made my stomach turn. School had become her personal hell. Teachers who used to adore her for being smart and kind now acted like she was some kind of social disease. They answered her questions with biting sarcasm, made her feel like she didn't belong, and during the school's intimacy safety class, the teacher stared at her the entire time, like the lecture was meant just for her. And the students? They were even worse. Girls who once copied everything about her, from her hair to her style, now sneered "slut" when she walked by. Her friends cut her off immediately. Within 2 weeks, she vanished from social media entirely. But through all of that, one thing stood out to me: Elena never let it make her bitter. She still stayed after school to help kids with special needs. I saw her sneak lunch money to a freshman who forgot his wallet. And she always had tampons in her backpack, always, ready to give one to any girl who needed it. No one thanked her. People just took what they needed and went back to pretending she didn't exist. Everything changed the day I decided to skip my 5th period class. My mom had gone on another drunken rampage the night before. She hit me, and I needed a break just to stop my hands from shaking. I headed to that hidden spot behind the gym where there were no cameras, just to smoke and get my head straight. Halfway through my cigarette, I heard footsteps. It was Mr. Novak, my geometry teacher. Everyone loved that guy. The girls giggled at his dumb jokes, and teachers always praised him like he walked on water. "Rough day?" he asked, stepping closer. I knew I was caught, so I looked him in the eye and asked him not to tell anyone. "I won't," he said softly. Then his tone shifted. "I've noticed you've been stressed lately," he said. "Maybe I could help you relax." Before I could make sense of his words, he had me backed up against the wall. His hands started sliding down my arms, and I froze. I couldn't move. My cigarette fell to the ground. "Just let me help you," he whispered. "Back the F off." A voice rang out. Elena was suddenly there, pepper spray aimed right at his face. Her hand was steady, but I could hear the rage shaking in her voice. Mr. Novak jumped back, trying to brush it all off. "I was just checking on a student who seemed troubled. You're misunderstanding this. I saw everything," she said, eyes locked on him. "Leave. Now." Something about the way she said it must have rattled him, because he actually listened. He mumbled something about reporting us for smoking and took off. I just stood there, overwhelmed with gratitude. Elena told me she was only out there for a smoke too. "I'm not a hero," she said. "Just right place, right time." She walked me to the principal's office right away. She demanded that something be done about Mr. Novak. But Principal Grant didn't even bother looking up from his computer. "Mr. Novak has been with us for 15 years and never had a complaint," he said like it was some kind of magic shield. Elena insisted. "He had her against the wall. His hands were on her." Then Grant looked at me. "Is that what happened?" he asked. "Sometimes when we're upset, we see things that aren't really there." Then he turned to Elena, voice dipping into that fake sympathetic tone. "Given your situation, I understand you might see problems where none actually exist. Maybe if you didn't want drama, you should have thought about that at 15. Her face went red as tears welled up in her eyes. She walked out, and I followed, too stunned and scared to say anything. I wanted to catch her, to talk to her, but she was already gone. She didn't come back for 2 days. And when she did, it somehow got worse. I was in algebra class when one of the guys who always made crude jokes about her called me over. At first, I didn't want to go, but the group pressured me. I gave in. He opened up a private IG gossip account and handed me his phone, laughing. What I saw made my stomach twist. There was a post showing nude photos of Elena, or so it seemed. But they were fake. AI-generated images with her face crudely photoshopped on. It was disgusting. "Pretty funny, right?" he said, still laughing as he turned to his buddies. I guess they thought I'd join in. I didn't say anything. I just nodded to escape the situation and left the room. I'd seen Elena earlier that day and knew where she might be. Sure enough, I found her in our usual smoke spot behind the gym. She was curled up on the ground, crying her heart out. I didn't speak. I just sat down beside her and held space. After 10 long minutes of sobbing, she turned to me and whispered, "You're the only friend I have left." Then she leaned into me, trembling. "You deserve to know the truth," she said. She pressed her forehead into my chest. "Ryan's not the father. He bailed when I found out I was pregnant." I was stunned. "Then who is?" I asked, hesitant but needing to know. She barely got the words out. "Mr. Novak," before breaking down again. My heart dropped. That was the same man she'd protected me from. As I held Elena, my thoughts were spinning. Everything came into focus. The way Novak had acted with me, the way he seemed so sure of himself. It all made sense now. Elena told me it all started the year before, when she began having trouble in his class. He started by offering her extra help after school. At first, it seemed totally innocent, just a good teacher helping a student catch up. But it didn't stay that way. Before long, he was saying things like how mature she was for her age, how different she was from other girls. Elena told me she should have seen the warning signs, but she was only 15. And he made her feel seen, like she mattered. That kind of attention hits different when you're that young and vulnerable. Then one day, during one of those after-school sessions, he kept her behind. That's when it happened. She never told a soul. Who would have believed her anyway? It would have been her word against his. He was the school's golden boy, and she was already viewed as that stuck-up, popular girl. I asked her why she even came back to school with everything she was dealing with, knowing people hated her. She wiped her face and said, "Because I couldn't let him win." She had to finish school, for her baby. She wanted to prove that quitting isn't an option, even when life tries to crush you. But now, after those AI-generated photos surfaced, she said she didn't know how much more she could take. I told her we had to do something. We couldn't just let Novak get away with what he'd done. She gave a bitter little laugh and reminded me what happened in the principal's office. "No one believed us then. Why would they now?" "Maybe not if we go it alone," I said. "But if we stick together, maybe we can figure something out." She looked at me like I was out of my mind, but I saw a flicker in her eyes. Hope. It was faint, but it was there. We sat together for another 20 minutes, just talking. She told me more about her home life, how disappointed her parents were, always pressing her about who the father was. She couldn't tell them. Not the truth. Not that it was Novak. They'd never believe it. Her dad coached the junior varsity basketball team. Novak sometimes helped out. They were practically friends. And her mom? She was always volunteering at school events, constantly gushing about what an amazing teacher Mr. Novak was. Elena said telling them the truth would blow everything apart. I got it. My mom never believed anything I said on a good day. On her bad days, she'd probably find a way to blame me. Then the bell rang. Time to head back inside. As we stood up, Elena asked me if I'd sit with her at lunch the next day. I said yes before she even finished asking. That's when she smiled, barely, but it was real. First smile I'd seen since I found her crying behind the gym. We walked back into the building together, and yeah, people stared. Someone muttered something about me being the next one to get knocked up if I kept hanging around her. I ignored it. Elena kept her chin up, walking tall like she always did. And I wondered, where did she find the strength? That night I couldn't sleep. My mind kept circling Novak. How many girls had he done this to? How long had he been getting away with it? He was still out there, teaching classes, coaching teams, being everyone's favorite. Meanwhile, Elena was treated like trash. I opened my laptop and started searching. I didn't know what exactly I was hoping to find. Old complaints? Hidden comments? Anything. I found the school's website and looked at his staff profile. Of course it was glowing. Teacher of the Year 3 times, led the mathletes to state championships, volunteered with troubled youth. The guy looked like a damn saint on paper. No wonder nobody believed Elena. I kept digging. Checked archived yearbooks online. Scanned through old photos, trying to spot something, some clue, some weird pattern. But there was nothing. Just Novak, always smiling, surrounded by grateful students and proud parents. The next morning, I met Elena at her locker before first period. She looked like she hadn't slept at all. Her makeup couldn't fully cover the exhaustion in her eyes. I told her I'd been thinking all night. That we needed to be smart about this. She nodded, said she'd barely gotten any rest either, juggling feedings and panic. We both knew no one in authority was going to help us. We needed another plan. I suggested we start by trying to find out if anyone else had gone through something similar with Novak. Her expression darkened. She said she'd been wondering the same thing for months. Especially on those nights she couldn't sleep. So we agreed. She talked to girls from her grade who had him for geometry, and I'd quietly ask around with sophomores who were in his class now. Nothing obvious. Just casual, offhand questions to see if anything felt off. We planned to meet at lunch and compare notes. That morning dragged. In English, I sat next to Amber. She had Novak for third period, so I casually asked how she liked geometry. Tried to keep it light, just friendly small talk. She said it was fine. But when I asked if Novak was as great as people said, she paused. Mid-sentence. Like something clicked. Her pencil froze in midair, and she got this weird look on her face. Yeah, he's helpful, she said eventually. Then she shut down completely and buried her face in her notes. By lunch, I talked to 6 girls. 3 gave me that same distant look when I brought up Novak. One of them actually started to say something, but then stopped and mumbled. Never mind. When I made it to our table, way back in the corner by the busted vending machine, Elena was already there, poking at her sandwich but not eating. She looked frustrated and worn out. She'd hit the same wall I had. Girls would act like they wanted to open up, but the moment Novak's name came up, they clammed up. She told me one junior, a girl named Chloe, actually teared up when she mentioned the tutoring sessions. But when Elena asked if she was okay, Chloe bolted, left her whole tray behind and everything. That told us something. We were definitely onto something. But nobody wanted to talk. That's when I remembered something from the true crime podcasts my mom used to listen to, back when she was sober enough to focus. Redditors usually don't stop with just one victim. They follow patterns. They choose their targets carefully. Novak liked girls who were vulnerable. Girls who were struggling in class. Girls who needed help. Girls no one would believe. Elena fit that mold perfectly. Smart, pretty, struggling in math. Her parents practically worshipped him. Nobody would question him, not over her. I started to wonder, how many others were just like her? How many sat in that same classroom, scared and unsure, wondering if they were next? After school, Elena had to go pick up her baby from her aunt's place. Elena's aunt had been watching the baby during the school day, one of the few people in her family who hadn't completely given up on her. I offered to go with her to pick up the baby, but she gently shut it down. Said her aunt already thought she was a bad influence on me, that being seen with a teen mom would wreck my future too. So instead, I went to the school library and started pulling yearbooks from the past 5 years. The librarian gave me a weird look but didn't ask questions. I sat down and began going through them, one by one, making a list of all the girls who had Novak for geometry. Then I pulled out the honor roll lists and started cross-referencing. I looked for names that went from struggling in math to suddenly acing it. It was slow, boring work, but then something started to pop out. Every year, there were a few girls, 2, sometimes 3, who jumped from C's and D's to straight A's in Novak's class. And weirdly, their grades in every other subject stayed the same. Only math shot up out of nowhere. I started snapping pictures of the yearbook pages with my phone. Made sure every name and grade was clear. We needed hard proof, not just suspicions. That night, Elena texted me. Her baby had been crying nonstop, and she was beyond exhausted. But she'd remembered something important. Novak kept an old-school paper grade book in his desk. Not just the online stuff, all of it handwritten. She'd seen it during one of their tutoring sessions. And he didn't just record grades, he wrote little notes too. She remembered seeing her name with stars next to it. Back then, she thought it meant he believed in her, that she was finally doing something right. But now, she wasn't so sure. The next morning at school was worse. Even with the administration's so-called zero-tolerance policy, those fake photos were still making the rounds. Someone had actually printed them out and taped them inside Elena's locker. She yanked them down without saying a word, but I saw the tremble in her hands. Saw how she blinked rapidly, holding back tears. Walking between classes, a group of guys started making nasty comments loud enough for us to hear. Trevor, the quarterback, the guy who thought he was some kind of gift to the world, actually reached out like he was going to grope her. I stepped between them and told him to back off. He laughed in my face and made some joke about me defending my new girlfriend. His buddies doubled over laughing, slapping lockers like it was the funniest thing in the world. Elena pulled me away before I could say something that'd get me suspended. "They're not worth it," she said. "None of them are." As we reached her locker, Novak walked by. He slowed down and looked right at us, but not at Elena. At me. His face wore that same concerned, friendly expression he always had. Total professional. He asked if everything was okay, using that soft, fatherly tone. I wanted to throw up. I nodded, keeping my face neutral, trying not to let him see how much he got under my skin. "If you ever need someone to talk to," he said, "my door's always open." Then he walked off like it was just another normal school day. The sound of his dress shoes echoing down the hallway made my stomach churn. Elena turned pale. "That's how it starts," she whispered. "The concern. The offer to help. The open door. At lunch, we made a plan." Elena remembered that over the summer, she'd helped organize math department supplies. She still had access to the department office. They hadn't changed the locks. She also remembered that teachers kept extra classroom keys in the supply closet. We'd go after school. Novak had basketball practice. He was the assistant coach and always left right after class. He wouldn't be back until after 5. That gave us just enough time. It was risky. But what choice did we have? No one else would talk to us. The school sure wasn't going to lift a finger. We had to do this ourselves. The rest of the day felt like it would never end. I sat through geometry class, watching Novak act like everything was totally normal. He made some dumb joke about parallel lines being like two high schoolers who never meet. The class laughed. Girls smiled at him. Like nothing had ever happened. He even called on me once, and I managed to answer without my voice shaking. "Good job," he said with a nod. Like we were just teacher and student. I kept wondering, how the hell could he do that? How could someone who did what he did just stand up there like nothing was wrong? When the final bell rang, I met Elena near the gym. We watched him head off with a few players, all of them laughing about last week's game. Once the coast was clear, she led me to the math department office. The door was unlocked. Teachers came and went all the time. She walked straight to the supply closet and found the ring with all the classroom keys. Novak's was clearly labeled. My palms were sweaty as we walked through the empty hallway. His room was at the far end, past all the other math classrooms and the tiny tutoring office. The key slipped right in and turned without a sound. Inside, everything looked totally normal. Nosters about believing in yourself. Neat desks. His own workspace was perfectly organized. A coffee mug that read, "World's Best Teacher," sat next to a fresh stack of papers. We split up. Elena started with his desk drawers while I went through the filing cabinet. First drawer? Nothing. Second, just a pile of old tests. Third had attendance sheets. The bottom drawer was locked. Elena grabbed a letter opener, and together we managed to jimmy it open. Inside, we found them, 3 gray books. 1 for the current school year, 2 for the previous years. She grabbed them and we started flipping through. At first, it looked like any teacher's notebook, assignments, grades, the usual. Then we found the stars. 5 girls in the current book had stars next to their names. 3 were juniors. 2 were sophomores. And just like in the yearbooks, every single one had a sudden spike in their math grades during second semester. The older grade books showed the same pattern, stars by certain girls' names, usually those who started out struggling. Always girls. Always sudden improvement. Elena started pointing out the names. Chloe was there. 3 stars. Isabel, who graduated last year. Hannah, who moved away junior year. She recognized them all. I took photos of every single page with a star on it, making sure the names and marks were clear. We had to be quick, practice would end soon. As we were putting everything back, a folded piece of paper fell out of one of the grade books. Elena snatched it up. It was written on pink stationery, the kind teenage girls use for notes. The handwriting was small, careful, and young. Mr. N, thank you for yesterday. I won't tell anyone. Please don't fail me. No signature. But the paper was creased and worn like it had been kept for a long time. Elena went pale. I wrote one almost exactly like this, she whispered. He'd made her write that note. Told her it was just to show she appreciated the tutoring. But now she saw it for what it really was, his insurance policy. It was meant to flip the script. Make it look like she was chasing him. Like she was the one trying to cross lines. That's when we heard footsteps in the hallway. My whole body locked up. We shoved everything back into the drawer and wrestled it shut. The steps grew louder, steady, deliberate, no rush in them. Elena grabbed my hand and yanked me behind the door just as it creaked open. It was Principal Grant. He looked around like he was checking if someone had been in there. Then he walked straight to Novak's desk, opened the top drawer, pulled out a folder, flipped through it for a few seconds, then slid it back in and walked out. Just like that. We didn't move for a full 5 minutes. I could barely feel my legs from shaking. Elena looked like she might throw up right there. When we finally got out of the room, we locked the door behind us and headed outside. We sat on the bleachers in silence, trying to make sense of everything. The grade books. The stars. The handwritten note. And now this, Grant checking Novak's desk. Like he was involved. Or at least knew something. Elena whispered. We have to tell someone. But who could we even trust? Grant clearly wasn't an option. Would the school board believe us? The cops? 2 teenage girls with a camera roll full of grainy photos and a story that sounded like something out of a Netflix drama? I told her we needed more. Solid backup. Someone else to speak out. Someone who could confirm what happened to her. She nodded but didn't look hopeful. They're scared, she said. Just like I was. Still am. That night, I didn't even try to eat dinner. Mom was passed out on the couch, so she didn't notice. My mind kept spinning, those names, those stars. How far back did this go? How many girls? I started looking up the names from the grade book online. Chloe had all her social media locked down tight. Isabel hadn't posted anything since she graduated. Hannah's last update was 2 years ago, just before she moved away. It was the same pattern over and over. Just like Elena. Girls who disappeared, went silent, or vanished from online completely. The next morning, Elena texted me. Her baby had a fever, and she couldn't make it to school. I told her I'd keep digging on my own. Walking into school without her felt off. Like I was out in the open unprotected. Like Novak would somehow just know what we'd done. But in class, he acted exactly the same. He stood up there, teaching angles and proofs, cracking the same cheesy jokes. The class laughed, like always. He was in control. Charming. Calm. But now I saw him differently. I noticed how he always offered extra help to certain girls. Quiet girls. Girls who looked tired. Isolated. Lost. He had a type. Elena might have seemed confident from the outside, but she'd been struggling too. Pressured at home. Not meeting expectations. And Novak had spotted that weakness. At lunch, I sat alone at the table Elena and I claimed, the one next to the broken vending machine nobody else touched. Across the cafeteria, I saw Chloe sitting with a small group of quiet girls. I recognized her name from the grade book. She had 3 stars by it. She looked worn down. Thin. like someone who was carrying way too much for her age. I walked over and asked if I could sit with them. The others looked unsure, but Chloe nodded. We made small talk for a bit, classes, homework, nothing serious. Then I casually brought up how I was struggling in geometry. Said I was thinking about asking Novak for help, but wasn't sure. Chloe froze. Her fork paused midair. Then she slowly set it down. Get a different tutor, she said quietly. A student, maybe. Or online. Just not him. The other girls at the table stiffened. One of them quickly changed the subject to the winter formal. But Chloe kept her eyes on me. After lunch, she caught up to me in the hallway. Why were you really asking about Novak? She asked, voice barely above a whisper. I took a deep breath and told her. I told her about Elena. About what he'd done. Tears welled up in her eyes. She said she didn't want to talk about it. That she tried once, told her parents, but they just brushed her off. Said Novak was the reason she passed math. Said she was being dramatic. Ungrateful. She ended up finishing high school online just to get away from him. But the trauma stuck with her. I asked if she'd be willing to help Elena. Maybe share her story. Something. Anything to get people to listen. She shook her head, eyes full of panic. I can't go through it again, she whispered. The questions. The looks. I saw what they did to Elena. I can't do that. I'm applying to colleges. I need letters. I need to move on. I understood. I really did. But it still crushed me. How many more girls were going to stay silent while Novak kept getting away with it? Chloe must have seen it in my face, because she whispered, I'm sorry, before walking off. That afternoon, during study hall, I headed to the library. I started researching how to report abuse anonymously. Maybe there was an outside agency. Someone not connected to the school. While I was typing, Brittany from my English class sat down across from me. She was always quiet. Smart. Kept her head down. She asked what I was working on. I said it was for a research project. She nodded, then slowly slid a folded piece of paper across the table. I heard you've been asking about Novak, she said softly. Chloe told me. And then she stood up and walked away before I could say anything. I opened the paper. Inside was a screenshot. A text conversation. It was Novak's number. He'd messaged a student, asking to meet after school for extra help. At first it sounded like normal teacher stuff. But then the text took a turn. Did you tell anyone about our sessions? You're special. I can help you with more than just math. My hands trembled as I stared at the messages. This was it. Real proof. I texted Elena right away. She called me from her aunt's house. I told her everything, Chloe, Brittany, the texts. She started crying. But this time, it wasn't from fear or sadness. She was relieved. She wasn't alone. She wasn't imagining it. She wasn't crazy. Other girls had gone through this too. We agreed to meet up the next day. We had to plan our next steps carefully. We finally had evidence. We just had to be smart about how to use it. Novak had been doing this for years. He was careful. Protected. We had to be even more careful. That night, I made backup copies of everything. I made sure to back everything up, the gradebook photos, the screenshot Brittany had given me. I emailed them to myself and Elena. Saved them to a flash drive too, just in case something happened to our phones. I barely slept that night. All I could think about was Novak standing up in front of the class the next day, pretending everything was normal. Still smiling. Still choosing his next victim, maybe already working on her. The idea made me feel physically sick. We had to stop him. But we were just teenagers. He was everyone's favorite teacher. Who was going to believe us? Elena came back to school the next day. Her baby was doing better, and her aunt could babysit. She looked drained, dark circles under her eyes, but determined. We met before first period, ducked into an empty hallway, and made a plan. We were going to try one last time to go through the proper channels. This time, we'd bring the evidence with us. No more vague complaints or emotional pleas. We had real proof now, pictures, messages, names, patterns. If Grant brushed us off again, we'd take it higher. Superintendent. School board. Whoever it took. Someone had to care that a teacher was preying on students. Someone had to do something. We walked into the front office together. The secretary gave us a tired look and asked if we had an appointment. We told her it was urgent. She sighed and called for Principal Grant. He came out looking irritated, like we were a waste of his time. He said he only had 5 minutes before a meeting, but we could follow him to his office. Elena started talking first. Calm, clear. She said we had solid evidence that Novak had been inappropriate with multiple students. Grant sighed like this was all just a nuisance. We've already been over this, he said. That's when I opened my folder and laid the papers on his desk. The photos from the gradebooks. The list of girls with stars next to their names. The sudden grade jumps. The pattern. He barely glanced at them. He said that grade improvement was just a sign of good teaching. That we were grasping at straws. Then I handed him the screenshot from Brittany. That made him pause. He looked at it more closely. His eyebrows drew together. Where did this come from? He asked. I told him it was from another student, someone else Novak had targeted. He set the paper down slowly. His voice changed. This is a serious accusation, he said. If you're wrong, you could ruin a man's career. Do you understand that? Elena didn't blink. He already ruined mine, she said. I'm 16 with a baby because a teacher I trusted used me. Why is his job more important than that? Grant stared at her for a long second. Then nodded and said he'd look into it. Told us to go back to class and let him handle it. But his voice was too flat. Too smooth. As we left his office, Elena muttered, He's not gonna do anything. And she was probably right. He'd probably run straight to Novak, warn him, help him cover it all up. We needed another plan. As we walked down the hall, someone called out Elena's name. We turned. It was Mrs. Chen, the bio teacher. She asked if we could talk after school. Said it was important. We agreed, though we were both confused. Neither of us had her for any classes. She usually only dealt with seniors. But the look in her eyes, it wasn't casual. The rest of the day crawled by. Novak seemed off. In geometry, he was distracted. Kept checking his phone. Fumbled through problems he usually breezed through. At one point, he stared at me for way too long. Like he was trying to figure something out. My pulse spiked. Did Grant tell him about our meeting? Did he know we'd been in his classroom? After class, he asked me to stay behind. My blood turned to ice. I said I had to get to my next class. He insisted. It'll just take a minute. Students were filtering out. Soon it would be just us. I grabbed my bag and walked toward the door anyway. He called my name again, sharper this time. Said we really needed to talk, about my grades, about my potential, about how he could help me succeed in his class. The words sounded innocent. But his tone? It made my skin crawl. I didn't respond. I just walked faster. In the hallway, I texted Elena. Novak's on to us. She replied right away. Said he'd given her a weird look earlier too. Like he was watching her. We agreed to stick together for the rest of the day. Strength in numbers. After school, we met up with Mrs. Chen in her classroom. It was empty. She pulled the blinds and closed the door. That made me nervous. But Elena didn't flinch. She seemed to trust her. Mrs. Chen sat on the edge of a desk and studied us quietly for a second. Then she asked, Are you the ones asking questions about Mr. Novak? We looked at each other, then nodded. She said she'd heard from Chloe and Brittany what we were trying to do, and that she wanted to help. Elena asked her why. Mrs. Chen said she'd been watching for years. She'd noticed patterns, girls who used to be lively, suddenly dropping out of clubs, avoiding people. Some went from outgoing to completely withdrawn. And always, their math grade shot up out of nowhere. She said she tried bringing it up to Grant 2 years ago. He shut her down fast. Told her she was imagining things. Warned her to stop spreading rumors or risk her job. So she stayed quiet. But she never stopped watching. I asked if she had any hard proof. She shook her head. Just observations. But I'm not the only one. She mentioned other teachers, Mr. Rodriguez in Spanish, Ms. Nark in history. They'd noticed things too. And they tried to speak up. Each time, they were shut down. Novak was protected. Untouchable. He brought awards to the school. Narrants adored him. The school board saw him as a shining example. Mrs. Chen said the only way to stop him now was to go outside the school entirely. Elena asked what she meant. Mrs. Chen reached into her desk drawer and pulled out a business card. It was for a detective at the local police department, Detective Sarah Mills. She works cases involving minors, Mrs. Chen explained. She'll take this seriously. But you both need to understand something. Once we go to the police, everything changes. She was calm, but her voice carried weight. The school is going to protect itself. Nipa will pick sides. It's going to get ugly. You have to be ready for that. I looked over at Elena. She was holding the card like it was hot to the touch. I could see 1,000 thoughts flying through her head, her baby, her parents, what would happen if this all blew up. But then she lifted her chin and said, I'm ready. I can't let him hurt anyone else. Mrs. Chen nodded and promised to call Detective Mills to set up a meeting. She told us to gather every single piece of evidence, photos, screenshots, everything, and make copies. Backups. Just in case. Be careful, she warned. Novak has friends in high places. The next 2 days felt like walking on glass. Novak watched us constantly, in class, in the halls, even across the lunchroom. I'd catch his eyes on us from across the cafeteria, cold and calculating. He wasn't even trying to hide it anymore. Trevor, ever the class clown, made some gross comment about how Novak must have a thing for the teen mom and her little sidekick. His friends cracked up like it was hilarious. I wanted to throw my tray at them. After that, Elena started having someone walk her to her car after school, usually me, sometimes one of the few girls who still stood by her. Detective Mills agreed to meet us that Saturday morning. We went to the police station with Mrs. Chen by our side. The station wasn't anything special, just a simple building downtown. And Detective Mills wasn't what I expected either. She was young, probably early 30s, but her eyes were sharp, and her handshake was steady. She led us into a private interview room and told us to take our time. No pressure. No judgment. Just truth. Elena spoke first. She walked Detective Mills through everything, how the tutoring started, the compliments, how he made her feel special. Then how he started touching her shoulders and holding her hands longer than necessary. How one day he kissed her, and she froze. How it escalated. How she didn't know what to do or how to stop it. And how, when she got pregnant, Novak convinced her to say it was Ryan's. Told her no one would believe her anyway. That everyone would think she was just trying to cover up. Sleeping around. Detective Mills listened without interrupting, just jotting down notes. When Elena finished, I stepped in and showed her everything we had, photos of the gray books, the stars by certain names, Brittany's screenshot of Novak's texts. All of it. She reviewed every detail, asked us about dates, locations, how we got the messages. She was thorough but patient, never once made us feel rushed. When we were done, she looked at us and said, I believe you. Those words hit hard. But then she added, to build a case, I'm going to need more. I need witnesses. Other girls to come forward. I told her about Chloe. About how scared the others were. She nodded. I understand. But their voices will make this stronger. If you can get just 1 or 2 more to speak, it could make all the difference. She handed us her direct number and told us to call with anything, new evidence, new witnesses, anything that might help. Before we left, she warned us again. Be careful. If Novak finds out we're involved, he might try to destroy evidence. Or worse, scare people into silence. We left the station with our heads spinning. Someone finally believed us. But now it was real. There would be an investigation. Maybe even a trial. Elena's parents would find out everything. So would the rest of the school. On the ride home, Mrs. Chen looked at us through the rearview mirror and said, You two are brave. I'm proud of you. I didn't feel brave. I felt sick. When Monday came, everything felt off. Novak wasn't at school. A substitute taught geometry. That alone sparked a flood of rumors. He was sick, or at a conference, or out for training. But Elena and I knew better. The investigation had started. Around lunchtime, the front office called us down. We walked into Municipal Grand Office, and the air felt 10 degrees colder. He looked furious. Did you go to the police? He asked flatly. Elena stared him down and said nothing. I nodded. You should have come to me first, he said, and let me handle this internally. Elena actually laughed, right in his face. We did come to you, she said. You brushed us off. You told us we were imagining things. His face tightened. You don't understand the damage you're causing. Novak is a good man. A good teacher. These kinds of accusations can ruin someone's career. I finally found my voice. And what about the girls he hurt? I asked. What about their lives? Grant looked straight at me. That's alleged, he said coldly. And proven. Right now, all you're doing is destroying a man's life based on rumors and misunderstandings. Then he said something that stopped me cold. You'd better be careful. False accusations can carry legal consequences. Elena stood up, face red with anger. We're done here, she said. We're not talking to you without a lawyer. Grant didn't stop us. Just sat there fuming as we walked out. In the hallway, Elena was trembling. He just threatened us, she said. I nodded. We texted Detective Mills right away, told her about the meeting. She responded fast, document everything. Write it all down. Save every message, every email. Build a trail. That week was total chaos. Novak never came back. The substitute became permanent. The rumor mill went into overdrive. Some kids said he'd been arrested. Others said he ran off to another state. The truth was less dramatic. Detective Mills told us he was on administrative leave while the investigation played out. But word had started spreading. The perfect image was cracking. Parents were asking questions. The school board was paying attention. And then, the backlash hit. Novak's supporters didn't hold back. They came out swinging hard. A group of parents even started a petition claiming he was being unfairly targeted. They called Elena and me liars, accusing us of just trying to get attention. Then, those AI photos of Elena popped back up, this time with new captions accusing her of trying to ruin a good man simply because he refused to sleep with her. It was downright cruel. Elena ended up missing 3 days of school because of it. I started eating lunch alone in the library just to avoid the cafeteria chaos. But then something unexpected happened. Brittany stepped forward. She showed up at the police station with her parents, and gave a detailed statement about the inappropriate messages and behavior from Novak. Her parents had found the texts and believed her. After that, Chloe's parents reached out to Detective Mills. They told the detective their daughter had something to share. One by one, more girls began to speak up, not in public, not at school, but quietly to the police and investigators. Mrs. Chen kept us updated throughout. She said more teachers were coming forward too, not with direct proof, but with their observations. Concerns they'd raised before, only to be ignored. Patterns they'd noticed over time. Mr. Rodriguez even had records going back 3 years documenting his worries about Novak's behavior around female students. Ms. Nark had emails where Grant basically told her to mind her own business when she tried to flag issues. The investigation grew bigger. It wasn't just about Novak anymore. It became about a whole system protecting him, ignoring warnings, silencing concerns, and putting the school's reputation above student safety. Detective Mills interviewed dozens of people, current students, former students, teachers, administrators. The stories were sadly all too similar. Girls who were struggling, Novak offering help, boundaries slowly being crossed, and a school that just looked the other way. The investigation dragged on for months, not weeks. There were depositions, evidence reviews, and legal battles that seemed to last forever. Novak stayed on leave while lawyers fought over every detail. The community remained split, some demanding he be fired, others defending his innocence. Elena and I kept going to school, dealing with judgment from both sides every single day. Some days were tougher than others. The AI photos kept resurfacing, no matter how many times we got them taken down. New rumors spread every week. But at least we had each other, and gradually, we weren't alone. Girls who had been silent before started giving us knowing nods in the hallways. Some even whispered, "Thank you," when no one else was watching. Finally, after what felt like forever, Novak got arrested. The charges were serious, multiple counts of inappropriate conduct with minors. The evidence was overwhelming. It wasn't just what we said, but physical proof they found when searching his home. Notos on his computer. Trophies from victims. And those gray books with stars? They weren't just tracking grades, they were tracking conquests. The community blew up. Parents who had defended him were stunned. Others admitted they'd always thought something was off. The school held emergency meetings, brought in counselors, and promised to fully cooperate with the investigation. Grant announced he was retiring early, saying he wanted to spend more time with his family. But everyone knew the truth. He was slipping out before they could fire him. The best part was what happened with the students. The ones who had tormented Elena started backing off. Some even apologized, not many, but a few. The AI photos vanished. Trevor got suspended for 2 weeks when it came out he was involved in creating them. His football scholarship offers started to disappear. Turns out colleges don't look kindly on students who make explicit images of minors, even if they're AI generated. Elena began to heal. She still had tough days and faced judgment from some people, but now she had support too, other survivors who truly understood. There were teachers who believed her, and even some parents who later apologized for not seeing the truth sooner. Elena began talking about college again, about becoming a social worker to help girls like her. Like us. The legal process dragged on slowly. Hearings, delays, motions. Novak's lawyer threw every trick in the book trying to get the charges dropped or reduced. But the evidence was just too solid. Too many victims. Too much proof. Eventually, he accepted a plea deal. 15 years behind bars. Registered as a sex offender. Never allowed to teach again. It wasn't nearly enough for what he did, but it was something, justice, of a sort. The school district also made changes. New rules about how teachers and students could interact. Mandatory training on reporting abuse. Anonymous tip lines. They couldn't undo the damage, but at least they tried to make sure it wouldn't happen again. Some folks said it was too little, too late, and honestly, they probably had a point. But maybe future students would be safer. I testified at one of the hearings, talked about that day behind the gym, how Elena saved me, and how many other girls she tried to protect, even when everyone was against her. The prosecutor said our testimony was key. The gray books, the photos, the pattern we'd exposed. Without it, Novak might have walked free. Elena squeezed my hand after I finished testifying. We'd done it. Together. Life eventually went back to normal, or as normal as it could be. Elena graduated with honors, despite everything. She walked across that stage with her baby in the crowd and her head held high. I had 2 more years of high school left, but they felt different. Better. The atmosphere had shifted. People were more aware, more cautious, more willing to speak up. Mrs. Chen became like an unofficial mentor for us. She helped Elena with college applications and helped me figure out what I wanted to do with my life. She said we showed more courage than most adults she knew. That we'd changed things. Maybe even saved lives. I didn't fully realize that. We just did what felt right. What had to be done. Novak's sentence made the local news. They didn't name any victims, but everyone knew. Elena gave one anonymous interview, voice disguised. She said she hoped other girls would find the courage to speak up, that they'd be believed, and that the adults meant to protect them would actually do so. She said she was healing. Moving forward. That her baby would grow up in a better world because people finally listened. And that really is the whole story. It was messy, painful, and complicated. Nothing like the dramatic TV reveals. Just 2 teenage girls who refused to let a predator keep hurting others. Who found their voices when everyone tried to silence them. Who learned that sometimes doing the right thing means things get worse before they get better. But they do get better. Elena's in college now, thriving. I'm applying next year, thinking about criminal justice or social work. Maybe both. Oh, and those AI photos? The kids who made them got more than just school punishments. Turns out making and sharing explicit images of minors, even AI generated, is a federal crime. They're all doing community service and probation. Their college dreams are pretty much gone. Good riddance, if you asked me. Novak's locked up where he belongs. Grant is out. The school's safer. Not perfect, but better. And Elena? She's the strongest person I know. Still kind. Still helping others. Still refusing to let what happened define her. She says her baby saved her life and gave her a reason to fight. But honestly, I think she saved herself, and maybe a whole lot of other girls too. That's it. Thanks for reading this absolute novel. I had to get it all out. If you're going through something similar, speak up. Find someone who believes you. Don't give up. It gets better. I promise.